All right, everyone. Well, good morning and welcome to the SEMC 2021 Technology Competition Showcase. My name is Scott Warren. I am the chair of the Technology Showcase this year, so I want to welcome everyone to this session this morning. I'd like to introduce, if I may here, my co-chairs who have done an outstanding job with this competition. I couldn't have done any of this without them. They were just been fantastic. I want to introduce Scotty Omany. Scotty is our jury foreman. He was responsible for coordinating the jury, recruiting the members, meeting with them, and giving them, an inside, glance of what the process is and everything. So, Scotty, thank you and welcome. Also, my other co-chair, Alex Brooks. Alex basically was helping me to go through the awards, take a look at them, and get everything set up for the showcase this morning. So, Alex, thank you. All right. Well, without further ado, our session this morning is sponsored by Time Looper, and we have actually Andrew Feinberg from Time Looper here, and he'd like to say a few words. Andrew.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And first off, I would like to congratulate all of the award recipients for this year's Technology Showcase. It seems only fitting that Time Looper is the sponsor of this showcase, as we are a award-winning exhibition design firm that works with museums, historic and cultural institutions as well, to develop immersive digital engagement solutions, both for on-site and distance-based engagement, principally through the powers of augmented and virtual reality. We're really excited about everything that you're all going to see today, including one award recipient who utilizes our underlying technology to create their own wonderful digital solution. Without further ado, I'd like to hand it back to Scott and encourage all of you who are either in person or through distance-based engagement to reach out to us and all of the technology partners that SEMC has to offer to explore ways that you can think about pushing the frontier of your customer experience. Scott?
Thank you, Andrew. And again, thank you for being a sponsor of the competition here. Much appreciated. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Scotty Omany. Scotty is our jury foreman, and he's just going to give a overview of the session and recognize our jury members. So, Scotty?
Thanks, Scott. So the SEMC Technology Competition was established to recognize and reward excellence in the use of technology by Southeastern museums. The competition encourages innovation, effective design, accessibility, creativity, and pride of work. And so, as you can imagine, over the last, since the last competition, actually, since the last session conference, we had one last year in the midst of COVID, and things have just, as you can imagine, have grown in the field in technology. A lot. So we're seeing, even more technology used in the museum field. And so this is my second year on the jury, I think. Yeah, this is my second year, and I was the jury chair this year, and I would like to take a moment to recognize the rest of the jury. We had Liz Biswell from the Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art, Kate Daly from the Atlanta History Center, Ainsley Powell, she works for the city of Raleigh, and two new members this year are Truly Matthews from the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art, and Benjamin Christie, who was a local Chattanooga addition, who works for the Creative Discovery Museum. And I just want to thank them for their dedication to the competition, and they made it really easy to be the chair of the jury this year. And Scott, yeah, back to you.
All right. Thanks, Scotty. And thank you to the jury members who really volunteered their time and efforts to go through all the applications. And I think there was some really good discussion that came out of the jury. And as a matter of fact, I think we're going to continue to meet even after this to look at ways that we can improve this competition and really get continue to get that important feedback. So we're going to continue as a working group, which I think was a big plus that came out of all this as well. So yeah, thank you, Scotty, for all your work. Appreciate it. And the jury members, thank you. I'd like to turn it over now to Alex Brooks. Alex is going to announce, except for the gold winners, he will announce the winners in the competition and recognize them. So Alex.
All right, thank you, Scott. First off, I'd like to congratulate everyone and thank everyone for submitting entries into the competition. There was an extraordinary amount of talent and ingenuity and some really creative thinking that really showed up in this competition. And it was extraordinary to see what everybody out there is doing at their institutions. For our award winners, like Scott said, with the exception of our gold award winners, I get very much the pleasure of announcing everybody else. And all of these were simply amazing to look at. So all of you really deserve a huge pat on the back, a huge kudos for what you're doing out there. So without further ado, we have several different categories. For those who are unfamiliar, we have applications, campaign, digital education, digital marketing, gallery installations, media productions, and student projects. So without further ado, the Silver Award winner for applications is the Morris Center for Low Country Heritage and for their project Explore Morris Center. For the campaign category, our Silver Award winner is the Customs House Museum and Cultural Center with Grand Illumination. For digital education, we had the Shiloh Museum of Ozark History for their project Native American Days program and their resources for educators and students. The bronze in digital education goes to the Asheville Art Museum for their summer camp to go. The honorable mention goes to the Telfair Museum for Picasso to Hockney Educator Guide, and also an honorable mention to the Georgia Museum of Art for their virtual 5th grade tour. In digital marketing, we have the Atlanta History Center winning silver with their website. For gallery installations, for silver, we have the Orange County Regional History Center for their deeds map, which was yesterday. This was home, the Okosi Massacre of 1920. For bronze, we have the Boston Productions for their Tennessee State Library and Archives Touch Interactive Experience. And for honorable mention, we have the Custom House Museum and Cultural Center for their in-museum digital marketing scene. For media production, for silver, we have the Asheville Art Museum for the Asheville Art Museum Smart Guide. For bronze, we had the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience for their orientation film. And honorable mention, we had the Shiloh Museum of Ozark History for their Shiloh Shout Out video series. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. And again, congratulations to all those award winners. They certainly turned out some great products, and it's just it's been fantastic. So thank you to all those award winners. Thank you. Well, now let's get to the gold winners. And this is exciting, and I'm very honored to announce and showcase these award-winning projects. First off, in campaign, we had the gold award winner was the Wiregrass Museum of Art. And I don't know if Melissa Ray is here or not to present. I don't see her, but they certainly did an outstanding project with the campaign. So congratulations to Wiregrass Museum of Art. Next up, we have Bob Knowl from Boston Productions, who won the Gold Award in Digital Education. Bob?
Well, good morning, everybody. I'd love to take credit for this project, but this was a team effort, and this is my colleague, and I think I'll let Candy sort of explain sort of our kind of relationship here. But I'm the creative director of experience design at Boston Productions, BPI, and I started in the theater when I was 5 years old, and I continued to do kind of tell stories this way with multimedia. And this was this for me as the director. I was the film director on this. But I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to show you what really was the meat of this project. It was a comprehensive built project by Candy and the Western Writers Association. So let me share my screen, and we will show you a little bit about how this all came to be. Let me get to a full screen here if I can. The beauty of Zoom. Here we go.
Slideshow.
Slide sorter, slide show. There we go. Okay. So Candy, please take a moment and tell about yourself and what we were doing.
So I wear two hats in this particular project. I'm an executive producer with Boston Productions and have worked with BPI for many years. I'm also the executive director of Western Writers of America. And we were actually invited and asked to create a digital education program by the Denver Public Schools. And it is all about the West and the frontier. So the frontier was Tennessee at one time. The frontier was actually New York at one time. So it encompasses the entire United States. And the way that we hybrid did this is that Western Writers of America was the production. We did the pre-production. We did all the original script writing and research, and we were the field producers. And BPI was the production team that came out and did the filming. We did do a national search for our production team. And so that's how we got to BPI. So now we'll tell you a bit about the project. So Packing the West is really teaches students about the importance of the American frontier. And we started out as a reading and educational program that was intended to go into the classroom and do presentations. When COVID hit, we were asked by Denver Public Schools if we could do a digital learning program instead. And we quickly switched and started working on that. And how it works is we transport students basically back into the 1800s, and they meet some characters across the United States. Go to the next slide. Okay. And we have 4 major areas of focus that we concentrate on. We have Western trails, Women of the Old West, Legends of the Plains, and American Indians. And each of the project will ultimately have 16 films, and they will be 4 in each of these categories, so they can be used as units in the classroom. And in addition to the documentary series, we have a Packing the West trunk that goes with each unit, and that can be sent to the school in advance. If we can be in the school, we present it live, but if we can't, as is the case right now, for the most part, we send the trunk ahead along with the curricula and supplemental materials that we've developed, which are reading lists and curriculum activities that relate to each of the films. And we're in the process of developing textbooks. And we'll have ultimately textbooks initially for the 17 Western states, and then we'll spread that across the nation. And Western Writers is an organization of professional writers. So we're all about writing and literature. Okay, Bob.
So the glamorous part, I guess that's what you would call the glamorous part of this, was, we're making these short 6 to 8 minute pieces that are as you can see here, we have 4 contemporary young kids, and then they go out on this adventure, sort of like almost like a time machine, and they end up in the 1800s, and they meet these important and relevant characters out of history. And the charm of this is the kids are really just kind of kids, and then they ultimately sort of kind of react and act with these other folks. So like they end up making adobe, and they end up panning for gold or looking for gold. It's a project that's hands-on. It feels that way. We shot it with a lot of production value, but it really feels like you're sort of just being taken on this like little adventure. And that's the ultimate production.
And then very quickly, we're just going to bounce through these. We have a trunk. Go ahead and just bounce quickly. Our curriculum materials that we've developed. We have connections to museums. All the filming is done in historic museums, historic sites. Museums provide the locations, the use of their structures, sometimes the use of their artifacts, and we certainly document everything as we go. And then finally, there's some benefits to museums through connection primarily to our network of Western writers, authors, expanded interest in American history. And fortunately for us, we've won a couple awards, and we thank SEMC very much for this Digital Education Award. It's extremely important to our program. If anybody wants to get in touch with us about anything, they're certainly welcome to email either of us, C. Moulton at Boston Productions or B. Knowl, N-O-L-L, at bostonproductions.com. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bob and Candy, congratulations. That looks like a fascinating project. So you're to be commended. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for that. And thank you for SEMC. We're really glad to be here. We're glad to be live with you.
Yeah, we're downstairs in the exhibit.
We're downstairs in the exhibit.
Thank you, Bob and Candy. Appreciate it. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we have digital marketing. The gold awards winner goes to the Gregg Museum of Art and Design for their project. I'm pulling up my notes here. For their project, Fantastic Fans, a collection of Emma Hannaford Smith. And then we have Christina Whitco. Is that correct,
Whitco,
Christina?
close enough.
Yeah. Well, we have here Christina is from the Gregg, and she's going to give us a little insight on their project. Christina?
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. And thank you all at SEMC. This was my first submission to any of your competitions, and I'm very grateful. It was a really great experience. So I will also share my screen here. I have a little PowerPoint for you. So again, my name is Christina Whitco-Marchington. I am the Educational Programs and Communications Coordinator at the Gregg Museum of Art and Design, which is quite a mouthful, but it's representative of all the hats that I wear. It's really exciting and fun. So I wanted to share with you the Gregg Museum's mission just to kind of contextualize this project as a marketing project. So the Gregg Museum of Art and Design at NC State University sparks creativity and encourages exploration through engaging exhibitions, relevant programming, and thought-provoking educational experiences. We focus on outstanding examples of art, craft, and design, and we utilize cross-disciplinary collaborations and the museum's extensive collections to foster critical thinking and expand worldviews. The Gregg Museum serves its diverse campus community and the Greater Triangle region in Raleigh, North Carolina, in a welcoming, accessible, and inclusive environment. So objects from our permanent collection at the Gregg Museum are not always on view. We're a collecting and exhibiting museum, so most often our exhibitions are always rotating. Either they're curated in-house with our own permanent collection objects, or they come from other institutions, or we bring in guest curators. So we have a little bit of everything, which we're really proud of. So we're always looking for new ways that our audiences, that includes NC State students, faculty, independent researchers, and anyone who needs to be able to access our collections. Of course, we have many rules and reasons for this to protect our collection. That's first and foremost. But we're always looking for new ways that we can make it accessible and meet our mission. So as a result of the pandemic, the Gregg Museum expanded our presence on social media and other platforms, including the use of Matterport tours for virtual programming. Zoom, of course, was quite a crutch for us, but also platforms like YouTube. So I have a little bit of video from our video that we put together, and I'll kind of explain it as this goes. So Fantastic Fans, the collection of Emma Hannaford Smith, is a project that began from my personal academic interests in collections, the history of collecting, and women's roles in the formation of museum collections. And that kind of stems from my master's thesis. I've always been interested in women's role in the art world and uncovering those stories that are very often not heard of for quite some time. But it also came from my desire to create marketing material that was more than just a social media post or a website or a print ad, but something that would stay relevant to as it's related to our permanent collection, while also serving an educational purpose. Like I said, I'm the Educational Programs and Communications Coordinator, so I'm always looking for ways that our marketing efforts or how we can communicate to the public also serves an educational purpose. And again, that just reflects our mission, but also our status as a university museum. So I'm really passionate about kind of getting our collection out there with accurate information and drawing people in by, I of course have a love for this and objects and learning about them. That's what's really exciting about my job, but I know not everyone views objects in the same way that I do. So it's always kind of a passion project for me to try to convince people that they love it. But the medium that we decided to go with was, I see it as a simulation of a collections visit with narration akin to an in-depth tour. So the motions of the camera and the up-close detailed views kind of mimic how someone might lean in to take a closer look at the more intricate details of an object or an image if they were there in person. And I wanted to provide enough engaging visual information that highlights the strength of this part of our museum's collection, while also providing enough research-based historical information, because this isn't a format that allows for live interacting questions and responses like a virtual tour might, but virtual tours also can't necessarily provide such detailed imagery. So it was kind of a combination of the both. But I also wanted this video to serve as an example of how someone might utilize our collection as primary source material for research projects. So the video highlights and contextualizes a collection of 400 hand fans that the Gregg Museum acquired as a gift in 2016 from Rosemary H. Claudy, in loving memory of Nicholas Hanford Claudy, her husband, and he was the grandson of Emma Hanford Smith, who collected all of these fans. So the collection itself was amassed between 1890 and 1920 by Emma Hanford Smith, with the help of her husband. His name was Hugh McCormick Smith, and he was a very prolific ichthyologist, quite an interesting pair, but he had connections around the world. He lived in Asia for a bit. They traveled everywhere. But of course, information about him is readily available online, and it was so much harder to find information about Emma herself. But the collection is unique in that each fan was meticulously cataloged with index cards and object numbers by Emma, which you can see here. And those index cards indicate and provide information of when the fan was collected by someone, when it was gifted to her, where it comes from. And so we just are so lucky to have such intricate, detailed information about each fan. And in my opinion, Emma's archival approach is just as intriguing as the fans themselves. So ultimately, this project was about creating a compact and complete informative experience that represents multiple ways that the Gregg can serve as a resource to our audiences, while also showcasing and highlighting a part of our vast permanent collection that will not always be on view in galleries. The top left image here is an example of one of our last in-person exhibitions before the pandemic hit, but we have it available in virtual tour format. So this is kind of an example of us being able to show the fans in person, but oftentimes researchers and students will start in our search portal, which you can see on the right. And so the research for this project has even led us into preliminary research for a planned exhibition and catalog in 2024. And that has already connected the Gregg Museum to archives at both the University of Rochester and Washington University in St. Louis. They have many family letters and photographs, and they've already graciously scanned so much of that. So I'm already diving into that information, but we're really looking forward to how that will allow us to connect more dots, provide more context to Emma's life, her travels, the collection that we are so lucky to have in both exhibition and catalog formats. But projects like this offer Gregg Museum staff opportunities to collaborate across our departments. Of course, we're always working together for a common goal and to meet our mission. But, you know, when our registrar team is downstairs in collections, that can feel kind of separated. So this was a fantastic opportunity for me to kind of selfishly go downstairs and get to see things up close in person, but also to kind of provide a window that our audience usually can't see through. So it serves as both marketing and educational content that was really only possible with the help of the Gregg Museum staff as a whole, but especially I wanted to thank our registrar and associate director, Mary Hauser, and our assistant registrar, Jordan Brothers Gao, and they're at SEMC to collect our awards this week and attend. So I wanted to thank them, the rest of the Gregg Museum staff, and all of you at SEMC. So thank you. I hope you're all able to check that out on our YouTube.
Thank you, Christina. Some of those fans look just amazing. Wow. Well, thank you, Christina, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, well, our next category this morning is gallery installations, and this year's gold award winner, it comes from the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience with their gallery installation, Community Quilt Interactive. And here this morning with us is Anna Tucker, and Anna, tell us a little bit about your project, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I am going to go ahead and share my screen to get everything started here today. First of all, on behalf of the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience, thank you to the technology competition and congratulations to all of the awardees. I'm already getting new ideas about things, so I appreciate the inspiration today. And again, congratulations to everyone. Before I get into the Community Quilt Interactive, I'd actually like to share a little bit more about the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience, which just opened this year in May 2021 in New Orleans. So we explore the diverse lives of Jews in the American South, ranging across 13 states and 350 years. And to tell these stories, we really focus on themes that interweave throughout these Southern Jewish experiences. So from immigration to civil rights, to experiences of both belonging and not belonging. And in doing so, we work to create a space for visitors of all backgrounds to consider how their own stories and histories and narratives tie into these histories that they're learning in the museum. And ultimately, this goes to support our mission to encourage new understanding and appreciation for identity, diversity, and acceptance. So when we began conversations about the closing interactive, it was built on the foundation that first we wanted to provide a space for our visitors to pause and reflect on the experiences that they had just learned about as they walked through the museum. But secondly, and equally as importantly, we wanted to provide a space of reflection so that visitors could think about their own identities and their ways that they are interwoven into their own communities as well. So we decided to focus our closing interactive on this 1885 community quilt, which is currently on view at the museum. And it was created by a Jewish ladies sewing circle in Canton, Mississippi. And it was likely raffled off in support of a local synagogue that had recently opened after a series of delays from fever epidemics of the 1870s. And as you can see on your screen, it's a quilt that defies patterns, which is one of the reasons it received the name Crazy Quilt during the height of its popularity. In each quilt square, which you may or not be able to see on your screen, but each quilt square is decorated with names and symbols and fabrics that hold a special meaning for the women who created this quilt. They then stitched together these individual identity squares into a community quilt, pulling together these disparate threads to create a cohesive whole. And in so many ways, it's really a metaphor for our museum and what we're hoping to achieve here. So we worked with Cortina Productions to build an interactive around this artifact that invites people to make their own community quilt using custom fabrics, patches, and drawing tools. And the original concept had visitors physically creating their quilt squares in the exhibition space itself, which I'm sure strikes joy in the heart of our educators on the call and sheer terror in the hearts of curators and collections managers. So ultimately, we opted for a digital platform, which both protected our exhibition spaces, but also provided far more abstract and creative ideas for people as they were making their quilt squares. So when people walk up to the touch screen of their choice, they first encounter a screen that reminds them of that 1885 community quilt, and there's an invitation for them to create and consider their own identity and their connection with the communities. Just as a bit of tech platform, we worked with Cortina Productions to build this, and they developed custom software using Unity on Windows 10. It's displayed on 8 19-inch ELO touchscreens with a BenQ 4K laser projector. So as you can tell from the screen, there are several steps in order to create the square. So the visitor can choose from a range of templates and fabrics and text, and as well as nearly 50 patches, which we selected based on demographic studies by the Pew Research Center and MSJ conducted focus groups. And then a critical component of the community quilt, which you can see on the right side of the screen, is the ability for people to express themselves beyond the prefabricated options of patches and fabrics. So Cortina Productions developed a drawing tool where people can select between 3 different sizes and 12 different color options, allowing visitors to express individual and abstract ideas. And the drawing then transforms into individual stitches when they stitch it into the community quilt. So the final step prompts visitors to add their individual square into the community quilt that you can see projected in the center of our table. MSJ has the ability to screen capture the entire quilt at any given time, meaning that we can preserve community quilts made by friends, families, groups, or even just strangers who happen to interact and cross paths when they visited the museum at the time. The visitor also has the option to email themselves a copy of their square, which is sent in PNG format for easier sharing and also uploading to social media. Accessibility was and is very important to us at the museum. So we worked with Cortina to ensure that the contrast, the font sizes, the colors that we used would all be accessible for multiple audiences. But we also wanted to be mindful that those who don't find it inviting to engage with technology as a reflection space still had an opportunity to interact. So we have a station where people can draw, write, and respond to the same question prompt using a low-tech method. So I think just in closing, one of the most valuable outcomes of this entire process was the reminder to continually return to the goals of this project. So it was very technologically involved. It became a very complex, exciting project, but we continue to place the goals of this project at the forefront. And I think that these goals are really imperative for all museums, for all of us to consider. So first of all, how can we intentionally carve out a space for reflection and contemplation in our museum spaces? And then also, how can digital interactives help visitors pull together the threads of experiences, not only from the museums that they visit, but also the threads of their own meaning and memory as they explore our museum space. So I thank you so much for your time, and I welcome questions at the end.
Thank you, Anna. That looks like an amazing space, and can't wait to visit next time I'm in New Orleans. So yeah, congratulations on the award this morning. Well, our next category is media production, and this year's gold award winner is the Orange County Regional History Center with their project Oral History Animation. Yesterday, this was home, the Ocoee Massacre of 1920, excuse me. And here representing Orange County is Catherine Duffy. Catherine?
Thank you, Scott. And good morning, everybody. Thank you also to the SEMC reviewers for the time and thought that all of you have put into reviewing so many great and inspiring projects that we've seen this morning, and some we haven't been able to see, but I'm sure are also very wonderful. Let me share my screen here. I'm going to try to play an animation for us, so I hope that works. But to get started, just a really quick overview. Are you all able to see my screen? I know this is the technology award, but I'll be honest, I'm not always adept with technology. So the Orange County Regional History Center is located in downtown Orlando, as you can see. We actually serve 7 county region surrounding Orlando, and we are located in the most magical, happiest place on earth, where both Disney World and Universal are located. But the project that I'm going to be speaking about today is not quite so happy or magical, but very, very important to local history with national ties. So on voting day in 1920, a Black gentleman attempted to exercise his right to vote. He was turned away from the polls. Later that evening, a mob of white men surrounded the home of his friend. Shots were fired. And ultimately, throughout the night, members of the white community burned the small town of Ocoee. Some families fled in the night and never returned. Many tried to stay, but were forced out due to intimidations, threats, and so on. And so the exhibition that we created yesterday, this was home, does center around the 1920 Ocoee Massacre. However, we wanted to build in information that helped illustrate the conditions that led up to something as horrific as the massacre occurring, as well as bringing in issues of race that we're still healing or working through or addressing today. So the entire exhibition covers over 500 years of history, but the focus really lies in the 1920 Ocoee massacre. So to be able to tell this story, we wanted to use primary source materials. So we poured over 150 primary sources that we had in our collection, collected oral histories. We used archives from the University of Florida, the National Archives, the Library of Congress. We cast a very wide net to be able to do this. Yesterday, this was opened in October of 2020, so it was the 100-year anniversary. You can see the exhibition has many elements, these rich colors, very dark and moody lighting, this rough hewn wood that has this burned away effect. So we wanted to create a very immersive experience for the visitors. We use large format imagery. This is an interactive voting station that we had in the exhibition. We wanted to engage families, children, people of all ages. And so because this is a very difficult history topic, very heavy and a lot of information to share because it covers such a breadth of time, we wanted to create an interactive element that would appeal to learners of all ages. So let me go back real quick. So over here on the right, you see this wood slat wall, and that is where we have our oral history touchscreen. So as you approach the touchscreen, there are 4 oral histories that you can choose from. And for this part of the exhibition, we partnered with a former Disney animator, an artist named Thomas Thorspekken. He used an iPad app called CaliPeg, which is a 2D hand-drawn animation tool, to create animations that we coupled with our oral history interviews. So some of these interviews we collected specifically because of this project, and some we already had in our collection. The 4 interviews that are featured and animated in the exhibition are Mildred Board. She recalls the night of the massacre as a child. She lived in a neighboring town. She was 6 years old during the night of the Ocoee massacre. She talks about the smells and the experience and how her community, Apopka, came together to protect its Black citizens. The next oral history interview and animation is with Robert Hickey. He's a descendant of a grandson of survivors of the Ocoee massacre. The third animation, which I'll be very happy to share with you in this presentation, is with Samuel Augustus Jennings. He talks about segregation in Florida in the 1950s. He was 12 years old and he took a Greyhound bus ride from here in Central Florida to the Midwest and describes what he experienced in regards to segregation. And lastly, as I mentioned, we wanted to make sure that we talked about race and racism today. And so we were able to interview Orange County's first Black mayor, Mayor Jerry L. Demings, and talking about issues of race in our community that we face. So to talk a little bit about the animations here, essentially they're time lapse that the artist, Thomas Thorspekken, adds first the wireframe background and then the color animations too. So as the interviewee is speaking and describing, for example, this is a outline of Mildred Board, and you'll see her become more filled in. She talks about the smell of the smoke that night and the sounds that she could hear. And as she's speaking, more of her detailing is filled in and the detailing around her. So each animation is a time lapse. And as the individual is speaking, it becomes more rich. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, so I'm going to skip forward to Samuel Jennings' interview. I'm going to switch my screen share real quick and play that for you now. Are you able to hear my audio?
My wife would call him thrifty, but my mother always called my dad stingy. Even though he bought me all these Christmas presents and this and that. So anyway, the bus was probably $2 or $3 cheaper than the train. So instead of going on the train to Detroit, which I love, I had to take the Greyhound bus to Detroit. So I got on the bus in Orlando and said 4 seats from the rear. That was the battle line I had drawn. And I was determined that I was going to fight it to the end, to death, defending that. And I wasn't going to move. Again, everybody behind me was black. We got to Winter Park, this black girl got on, she was a teenager. I was 12, so she was probably 15 or 16, something like that, and she was going to Detroit too. And so when she got on, we started chatting, and I said, look, I said, you know, the bus driver might tell us to move back, but if he tells us to move, don't move. He said, we have a right to sit here. He said, the law says that when you're traveling in interstate commerce, you cannot be segregated. I said, okay. Everything was cool. The bus rolled on out of Winter Park and we got to Jacksonville. The bus driver got off and then he came back on the bus and came back to us and said, would y'all please move back to the back? We got some white people getting off. Remember, he was a younger guy. Obviously, he didn't have the attitude of this other guy. And so I just gently pressed down on her arm or thigh so she wouldn't move, as a reminder. And I looked up at him and I said, sir, we have a right to sit here. I said, we are traveling in interstate commerce. The law says that we can sit anywhere we want to. Damn, I was scared. We were in Jacksonville. You just mentioned Jacksonville. Jacksonville was like being in Mississippi. He said, well, I got these white people getting on. Would y'all please move? And I just said, no. So he turned around and left. And that's when I was really scared. Because this was right the year after Emmett Till had been lynched. And, all those warnings my grandmother had taught me about talking back and being up against the white people. And I didn't know what they were going to come back on the bus and tell us. Finally came back on the bus and these white people were trailing him. And he led them to the back of the bus behind us and we sat down. And I felt a combination of relief, felt vindicated, but also felt afraid because I didn't know what was going to happen for the rest of the trip to the South, which was all pretty good. But that taught me, after that trip was over, that I could stand up for my rights and survive. So that probably instilled in me that seed of rebellion against the system that really blossomed later in the 60s when I was in high school.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Catherine, thank you. That looks like an amazing project. So thank you very much. Congratulations. And our last category here is student projects. And the student project gold award goes to the Asheville Art Museum for their NEH Cares video. Unfortunately, they can't be with us this morning, but I certainly want to recognize them and their achievement in this category. So congratulations, Asheville Art Museum. I did hear, I will go back a little bit, the gold award winner for campaign, the Wiregrass Museum of Art, which their award was for House Party for Art. They did let us know they cannot get in this morning. So, but I do want to congratulate them as well for their gold award winning entry. Actually, and that is our gold award winners. Scotty, are there any questions or comments in the chat session you'd like to pass along?
No questions have come through. But yeah, just thank you all for attending, and just to remind, there will be a session evaluation in Feed Loop if you would like to go in and give us that feedback. We value that. And other than that, no questions have come through. We did just get a comment from Christina Thanks everyone. You can find the Gregg Museum's video, Fantastic Fans, the collection of Emma Hanford Smith on YouTube, and she posted a link there in the chat. So.
Okay, great, fantastic. And before we close out the session here, again, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Time Looper, and Andrew Feinberg. Andrew, thank you again for sponsoring this fantastic session. What an amazing group of award winners we have here, an amazing group of submissions. They're all gold winners. They really put a lot into it, and so I want to thank everyone who entered the competition this year. I look forward to seeing many of you here at the meeting here in Chattanooga. But if not, I do want to encourage you to think about applying for next year. We've got some excellent projects I know that are going on out there, and we'd love to get that recognized and give you an opportunity to shine. So consider entering next year, please. Well, for
I reiterate that too. We would love to see your work for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, for Scotty Omni and Alex Brooks, thank you all so much. Have a great conference, and hopefully I look forward to meeting y'all and seeing everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah,
You all. Thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.